This section gives a short introduction to the alternative survey arrangement for hull structure, called the Integrated Survey Programme. This survey arrangement has been particularly developed for container ships. The reason for the ISP is that the container business is a highly sophisticated activity, which require no delays and as few interruptions in the operation as possible. DNV, as a classification society, came up with the idea of the ISP so that the owners could get a better control of the hull maintenance, and by that prevent unexpected delays due to hull structure problems. Modern logistics require from the ship operator that there is no disruption of the ship's schedule, no interference with cargo operations in port, and no disturbance to berth priority or port stays. This requires a reliable and trustworthy maintenance policy in order to minimize the off-hire. Today, DNV takes owner's maintenance system into account regarding the survey of machinery. In that case, regarding machinery surveys, we have to do with very qualified chief engineers who know how to do both continuous machinery surveys, CMS, and planned maintenance system, PMS, for machinery. These alternative survey arrangements are working well. Machinery inspections carried out by the chief engineer may give credit towards the class. This is in the rules. For the hull, it is somewhat different, and we will come back to that. To the left, you see a part of an owner's planning and tracing tool, and to the right, a class survey checklist for PMS. The owners do hull inspections today, but it may be discussed to what extent this is done in a structured and systematic way. The class carry out hull surveys on board at prescribed intervals and to a standard extent. But the knowledge sharing between class and owners leave room for improvement, since the inspection by the owner and survey by the class are separate processes with limited links between them. With the Integrated Survey Programme, ISP, DNV would like to improve the knowledge sharing with the owners. Through the ISP, DNV will help the owner to upgrade his own organisation with regard to hull maintenance. If the dedicated ship crew does hull inspections and maintenance in a systematic and structured way, then the class will focus more on support. Support means that qualified people from DNV are involved when problems are to be solved. It is therefore of great importance that you learn how to do the hull inspections through this CBT. In the International Safety Management Code, ISM, Regulation 10, the owner's obligations regarding maintenance of his ship are as follows. The company should establish procedures and assure maintenance in conformity with the provisions, which means that inspections are held at appropriate intervals. Any non-conformity is reported, appropriate corrective actions are taken, and records are maintained. There are different types of owners in the market. Some know the requirements, but only provide compliance with rules and regulations when told by class or maritime authority during survey. That attitude is called evasion culture. The compliance culture is those owners who know the applicable requirements and do what is needed to be in compliance with the requirements, but nothing more. The safety culture is those owners saying that the compliance culture, which is a minimum standard culture, is not sufficient for them. They want or need to do more. In some trades, the owners have to apply a safety culture due to the push from charterers like the oil majors. It is believed that the container trade also need a safety culture at all levels in order to meet the requirements from the charterers, and ISP will contribute to that. This is an example on the number of holes, tanks and spaces the hull may consist of. Thus, it is very important to establish a planned inspection and maintenance system covering all the items applicable to inspection by the class, for the owner to follow the system and to have a quality control, that is to say, check that it works on a regular basis and carry out corrective actions when found necessary. What will DNV do when an owner wants to run the Alternative Survey Arrangement, ISP? DNV will assist in the development of a planned inspection and maintenance system, PIMS, audit the implementation, audit the system once a year, consider to credit for owner's inspection, check by doing surveys if considered necessary. The crediting of owner's PIMS inspections will be based on the inspection records on board during the class surveyor's annual audit of the system, and his impression of how PIMS is practiced. The surveyor may do his own survey, or together with the PIMS inspectors on board. The scope of tank inspections of a container ship is emphasized through the tank plan of a Panamax container ship to the right. Some inspections will have to be done by the class surveyor, such as dry docking and bottom survey, damage and repairs subject to class and survey of potential problem areas, for example, tanks with poor coating. Regarding damages, the owner is obliged to inform the class about any damage to the ship, which in his opinion may lead to a condition of class, like the crack in the upper left picture. Such damages are to be surveyed by a class surveyor, as well as the repair. Regarding coating, the International Association of Classification Societies, IACS, requires all ballast tanks to be coated, and that the condition of the coating is rated good or fair. Should the coating be rated as poor, like the coating shown in the lower left picture, it has to be inspected by the class surveyor. Thus, the ballast tank in question will be subject to annual survey by the class, and the tank will be deleted from the ISP. The rating of coating will be further dealt with in Section 11. The sketch to the right illustrates the deterioration of the hull structure over time, and we will also come back to this in Section 11. A container ship running the Integrated Survey Programme must have a planned inspection and maintenance system. The following is included in the PIMS: personnel, responsibility and authority, identification and job description for various functions, inventory system, inspection and maintenance items, inspection and maintenance intervals and inspection methods, reporting and record keeping, acceptance criteria, procedure for corrective actions. Regarding the acceptance criteria, the class have some criteria which will be shared with the owner. However, the owner should also have some criteria for acceptance of deficiencies, based on their own experience with what is required for an efficient trading of the vessel. Owner's criteria should in principle be more strict than those from the class, so that the owners have a certain margin to operate on before it becomes a condition of class. The owner should also have established procedures for corrective actions in his planned inspection and maintenance system. Classification is constitution of a technical standard, the rules aimed at promoting safety at sea, verification that these rules are satisfied during design, construction and installation, verification through a system of periodical surveys that the standard of the ship and its equipment is acceptable throughout its lifetime. Click the buttons for more information. By design is meant all documentation needed to construct a ship. Specified parts of the design documentation are submitted to DNV for approval and are approved when the rule requirements are met. The follow-up during construction will consist of to verify the cutting of steel, the fitting of plates and stiffeners, the erection of block, and the final fitting of the blocks in the building dock, forming a whole ship. This has to be done in accordance with the approved drawings submitted from the Class Approval Office. At completion of the construction, the ship is provided with a class certificate, confirming that the ship is built in compliance with the rules. Verification that class rules are satisfied during operation is done through a system of periodical surveys to verify that standard of the ship and its equipment is acceptable throughout its lifetime. The most important statutory certificates are the International Load Line Certificate, ILL, the Cargo Ship Safety Construction Certificate, CCC, the Cargo Ship Safety Equipment Certificate, CEC, the Cargo Ship Safety Radio Certificate, CRC, the International Oil Pollution Prevention Certificate, IOPP, and the Certificate of Compliance for Ships Carrying Dangerous Goods, COC. Validity of these certificates are subject to surveys by the flag state in order to verify that the ship is in compliance with the requirements for the certificates. The flag state normally authorizes the class to do these surveys. For retention of class, we talk about two different terms, assumptions and obligations. The approval of the ship is based on the assumptions that the ship is competently handled, properly maintained and adequately manned. The class assumes the owner will act according to the assumptions above. Regarding competently handled, the ship may break in two due to improper loading, or get damage to the bow area due to bow impact as a result of too high speed in heavy weather. For proper handling of the ship, reference is also made to the appendix to the class certificate. Regarding properly maintained, poor maintenance may result in corrosion and damages to the ship, which have to be repaired. Regarding adequately manned, this will cause problems with the flag state and the insurance company, in particular in case of any casualty. As for the owner's obligations, the owner has to submit complete and correct information, subject ship to prescribed periodical surveys and surveys of damage, repairs, conversion and alteration, carry out condition of class, pay all due fees and expenses. If the owner does not fulfill the obligations, it will have consequences for the ship's class. Thus the class may be deleted after a certain time. If surveys and conditions of class become overdue, there is a computer-based system which picks out the ships in question and deletes the ship's class by following a certain procedure. The class certificate is valid for 5 years. In order to keep the certificate valid, the vessel has to be subject to annual surveys, as marked to the right, and after successful completion of the annual survey, the certificate will be endorsed. Should the certificate not be endorsed by a class surveyor in time, the certificate will become invalid, and the ship will be detained if subject to port state control. In such cases, annual survey is to be carried out by the class before the detention may be lifted.